As soccer takes center stage this summer, Comcast helps bring the experience home to America. As the exclusive Spanish-language home of the tournament in the U.S., Telemundo is set to present its most expansive coverage ever. 700 hours of programming, live on-site presence at all 104 matches. And with multi-view and real-time 4K, Xfinity will deliver the most innovative and immersive sports viewing experience for fans watching on Telemundo, Peacock, Fox, and FS1. Learn more at ComcastCorporation.com.
Hey friends, the views of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Let's Talk Menopause. Let's Talk Menopause does not provide medical advice. The content in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions that you may have. This episode of Hello Menopause is sponsored by Versally. Visit Versally.com for the info and products you need and the menopause care you've been searching for.
Menopause and perimenopause doesn't cause ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody just shows up with ADHD. You might have symptoms, but it doesn't just happen because it's a neurobiological condition that starts at birth versus menopause where it just declines and that's the end of it. It's perimenopause really that gives women a lot more issues than menopause because of the inconsistency.
Welcome to Hello Menopause. I'm your host, Stacy London. Hello Menopause is changing the conversation around menopause. In every episode, we explore the physical, emotional, and mental changes that women experience during this transformative stage of life. On this episode of Hello Menopause, I'm joined by Debbie White, ADHD coach and founder of LifeStormer. We're talking about that midlife moment when you suddenly can't focus, can't remember anything, feel completely overwhelmed, and start wondering, what is happening to me? If that sounds familiar, this conversation may explain a lot. Please welcome Debbie White. Debbie, I'm so happy that you are here joining us on Hello Menopause because I feel like the overlap and confusion around menopause, perimenopause, and ADHD, what's going on in the brain with hormones and things like that, has been confused, conflated. I'm curious if you felt like your ADHD became more prevalent because of perimenopause, or do you feel like it's completely separate from perimenopause? How do we know what we're looking for? And why is there such a sudden onslaught of ADHD symptoms without necessarily having that diagnosis?
So for me, I always was scattered and disorganized. Even as an ADHD coach, it's still an opportunity area, let's say. So I always exhibited ADHD symptoms, but being 52 years old, girls didn't have ADHD. And what's funny is I have a twin brother who I only recently found out was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. They never talked about it. So basically, I always exhibited symptoms, but it definitely got worse as demands got higher. I was less able to juggle.
Let's talk first a little bit about what the symptoms of ADHD are, particularly the way that you describe them as scattered, right? Some people have hyperfocus, some people have no focus, some people have some combination of the two. A lot of the times I think that the conflation with perimenopause has to do with the forgetting everything, the brain fog, feeling that overwhelm. And do we think that there is a version of ADHD that either presents itself at perimenopause or that the symptoms are just so similar we get confused between what we're looking at?
So menopause and perimenopause doesn't cause ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody just shows up with ADHD. You might have symptoms, but it doesn't just happen because it's a neurobiological condition that starts at birth, whereas perimenopause and menopause are impacted by an inconsistency in estrogen versus menopause where it just finds and that's the end of it. And so in doing my research and also in working with clients, I learned it's perimenopause really that gives women a lot more issues than menopause.
Right.
Because of the inconsistency.
So, right, the systems that don't work necessarily because of the inconsistency in hormones. But if we're saying that ADHD is a neurobiological condition, then you're born with it whether you show signs of it or not. Do we think that the inconsistency in hormone fluctuation can reveal ADHD?
100%.
100%. Is that
Yeah,
what causes it?
it doesn't cause it, it unmasks it.
Mhm.
I didn't know. I lost a shoe on the way to school. I can probably say that 0% of neurotypical people lost a shoe on the way to school. So
Right.
I always had it, not knowing that I had it. And so it was the unmask of the demands that just made what works once not work anymore.
It just seems to me like this is less and less niche, really, and more a part of one of the things that we need to be talking about. I can imagine that this becomes a very difficult aspect of midlife for a lot of women to handle. A coach who found this niche. Take me through the protocol of what you're actually asking people to do who come to you with this issue and say, I can't manage anymore. I don't know how to deal with this.
So the first thing I do is I tell them to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And to your point about the label thing, it doesn't matter. Is it an ADHD? Is it not ADHD? Is it executive dysfunction? But in terms of when the woman comes to me, at the point that someone is seeking a coach, their daily lives have been tremendously impacted. I don't diagnose or treat ADHD. I manage the symptoms of ADHD. So we go through an assessment. And the way I look at ADHD is really, I break it up into the social emotional piece and then to the executive function day-to-day skills impact piece. People who have either dealt with ADHD for a long time or high functioning women who were used to spinning all the plates and no longer can do it, no one is unscathed from it because they might end up with imposter syndrome. I've been doing this my whole life and now all of a sudden I can't manage it and they're reevaluating their whole life. Like, am I a fraud? Did I not do that? And the answer is no, you are not. In my practice, we talk a lot about, so first we work on the social emotional piece and focusing on what are the strengths that you can lean into. It's all marketing. It's like marketing in your head for yourself. There are still a million things that I can do. I am still a great mother. I am still a great wife. I'm scattered, but so what? This is neurochemistry. This isn't me. So really working on filling in that social emotional piece and then moving into the day-to-day skills piece. And the first question I usually ask is, what's hardest about your life because of your ADHD? What's hardest for you right now? Because when you have ADHD and you tend to be overwhelmed, if you try to change too many variables at once, the ground comes out from under you and your foundation is rocked. And so we work on what's hardest a little at a time. I meet my clients where they are. I have a sense of humor about it. I encourage them to see the positive. And it's also a time, doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. Like when you get the right treatment, whether it's MHT, HRT, coaching, mind therapy, all of the above, medication, stimulants, non-stimulants, whatever it is that works for you, you can feel like yourself again. It just takes time.
If you've already had ADHD and gone undiagnosed, and then you start to experience these things in perimenopause, it may be like you're meeting yourself for the first time too, to finally get it at least addressed, right? I'm interested because you focus a lot on the scattered part, but there's a lot of hyper focus as well in ADHD, isn't there?
100%. I would say, I don't know what the stats are, but I think, so the differentiation between the scatter and the hyper focus, ADHD is not a condition of knowing, it's a condition of doing. There's not a correlation between intelligence and ADHD. How do you get started? How do you follow through? How do you break up tasks into smaller chunks? So it's like knowing how to do those things and knowing how to start those things. And so the hyper focus, the thing about ADHD is neurotypicals are mostly driven by importance over interest. If something's interesting to me, I can sit and do it for 12 hours without getting up to that. And so that's the struggle especially like when kids go to college, or we as moms or as parents are having things to do. As adults, we have to do important things that aren't always interesting. So I work with my clients a lot on how do you prioritize the important over the interesting.
Okay, interesting. How do you do that? And I'm assuming that in some cases, and I see this all the time, just in lots of different neurodivergent cases where that hyperfocus can be a superpower. And it's great if you love doing it. But I think what you're getting at is actually something very interesting to me. And this has application, I think, far beyond just ADHD, but how do we prioritize the important over the interesting? Because I think that's a discipline that everyone needs, and particularly in perimenopause, when you can be like completely torn apart by different symptoms. How do we create that priority, and then how do we stick to it?
So the benefit of having ADHD is a lot of people work really well under pressure,
Right.
Because you get that dopamine surge at the last minute. But the best strategy to adopt when you have ADHD is if you can plan ahead, if you can learn to plan ahead and be intentional, that's where the success comes in. So the first thing I do with my clients is I say, how many notepads do you have in your office? And they say 15.
Right.
I say, okay, we're going to pick a winner, take one notepad that's going to be your favorite, tuck the other ones away in a closet, and from now on, one notepad.
For everything.
For everything. And you can take a tab in between, and you could do personal and you could do professional. What I say is, this is the one system that I think everyone should adopt. Most strategies are individualized, but this is one thing. If you're working on one piece of paper, on one notebook, then what you have to work on is non-negotiable, because, oops, it was in my other notebook. No, that doesn't happen. What I encourage my clients to do, and what I do every single day, is I write 3 things on my piece of paper, on my one notepad. If those 3 things get done, and they should be, I make them my most important things, then I can have my dessert of doing the other things that I really want to do.
But I guess if you are coming up against this for the first time in perimenopause, it is very disorienting.
Yes.
As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that there's a lot of these things. ADHD, I can imagine that your self-worth really takes a hit, because it's like being on a diet, right? You have to have a certain amount of discipline, and you have to set things up in a way that allows that discipline to flourish in order to make things happen. And I would think, okay, I've got to eat protein for breakfast so I can make it to lunch, and think all of that kind of organization and skill sharpening be very difficult, I think, at any stage of life. Throw in ADHD to that, how you're going to manage it in and of itself is a problem for somebody with ADHD. So I can see how this could get very frustrating very quickly, right? Yeah. You're trying to manage all these things. You've been able maybe for most of your life to manage all of these things. All of a sudden you can't. The overwhelm is intense, but so is the shame. What do we do in order to give ourselves some grace? Give ourselves a break when it comes to managing these things for the first time if we're in our 40s and 50s.
That's what I was talking about before with the social emotional piece, is really learning to give yourself grace, figuring out how to have a sense of humor, and rewriting the narrative for yourself from why is this happening to me to this is neurobiology and my brain just needs different conditions to work under right now. And so what I said before, this doesn't have to be doom and gloom. I feel happier than I've ever felt in my life.
How long have you been, quote unquote, managing your symptoms? And do you use medication in conjunction with coaching? Do you use coaching in your own philosophy to manage your symptoms?
My day that I started perimenopause, which was 1 month before my 40th birthday.
Oh, you were early.
I was very early. I had no idea. The whole menopause thing, my mom was an Afghan nurse, and I never heard the word menopause because who talked about it? And so It was like I got my period for the first time without knowing about it when I entered perimenopause and having no idea that that's what it was. And nobody mentioned it to me. And that's when my plates all fell on the floor.
Right.
I started a new job, a big corporate job. I had to go into conference rooms because I couldn't stop crying. And I am not a crier. And so my symptoms really hit. So I went on an antidepressant. I also did not sleep for 3 years.
Yeah, I got you beat there. It took me 7 to get help.
That's brutal. That is
brutal. 4 hours a night
brutal.
for 7 years is no joke.
It's no joke. I found a sleeping solution that worked for me, and that is hydroxyzine, which is a first generation. It's a first generation antihistamine that didn't work as an antihistamine, although I'm never congested. So I think that there's something to that. But it is non-habit forming, and it's also called Visceral, which some doctors prescribe for anxiety. So that has helped me sleep. And I did recently go on NHT, and that is where I feel like I had lost my spark.
Yeah.
For a long time. I just didn't feel joy in anything. I wasn't depressed, but I just wasn't happy. And I feel since I started, I feel happy and I feel hopeful and I feel joyous and I feel lighter.
Hey everyone, Stacy London here. Season 4 of Hello Menopause is taking a quick summer breather, but we are not leaving you hanging. All summer long, we're dropping summer shorts, bite-sized episodes every other week, our most loved conversations, plus a few brand new voices. Real talk, real experts, under 10 minutes. Find us on YouTube wherever you get your podcasts. We're back in September with all new episodes. Have a great summer. I love the idea that, again, you've individualized this. It's very important to reiterate this is your Debbie White's individual plan, but I do really love the fact that there is a plan that requires more than just one thing. On this podcast, we talk a lot about action-oriented items because I want people to feel like there's something they can listen to this and then they can go and do something about a situation that has been plaguing them or confusing them or whatever it might be around the menopausal experience. And I think that this question of ADHD or ADHD-like symptoms, meaning a decrease in executive function. And I would love, I don't know, can you define how executive dysfunction is defined as a brain function? It's not just decision making. Executive decision making is primary, correct?
So executive function, if you think of an air traffic controller who's coordinating everything, or like an orchestra, that's executive function. So that is organizing, planning, starting and finishing. Emotional regulation also goes in there. Accountability. All of these skills that allow us to function as humans every day are executive function. So it's not really a scale that would say there's 12 executive functions, and if you're deficient on 3, you have executive dysfunction. It's more like the way you approach. Are you disorganized? Are you scattered? Time blindness is also a huge one. And that's another one that's really exacerbated. People with ADHD, and especially in perimenopause, it's like time isn't a fact. It's more of a construct. It's not like a real thing. When you have executive dysfunction, though, it really impacts everything. You can't get to a carpool on time, or you can't work backwards from a deadline to know that if you have an exam, if you plan ahead, you know the exam's in 4 weeks, and you study 1 chapter a week, then you can walk into the exam like cool as a cucumber with a good night's sleep because you planned ahead. So I would say that is the biggest strategy to get used to when you have ADHD is how can I plan ahead? Anything you can do to remove the decision-making in the moment is great. Like a capsule wardrobe, which I still haven't figured out how to do.
That's because capsule wardrobes are complicated. Debbie, I'm not going to lie to you.
It's so complicated. I've read so many
capsule wardrobes are easier, but that's not necessarily true. Yes. Well, I like to say, I don't know, Debbie, I'm giving this to you free of charge. If you want to share this with your clients, you feel free. But what I like to do is when I find an outfit that I love, I hang it together. So it's in my closet as an outfit, as like one of my 10 go-tos. So I have them for work, I have them for casual, and I have them for like parties, so that I don't, when I'm overwhelmed, I don't think about what I have to do. I already know that the accessories, the pants, the shirt, the necklace, the belt, they're all hanging together on a hanger in my closet. That's how I make life easier from a wardrobe perspective.
I love that.
You can share it.
I will steal it with pride and attribute it to you.
I want to talk a little bit about the things that are potentially, like what you said. I've not heard that rejection sensitivity isn't really a thing. I've heard more and more that that maybe it's just anecdotal, but that it is absolutely attributed to a part of ADHD, and that emotional regulation is certainly a part of ADHD.
Yeah.
But that feels like a much bigger piece, because you sometimes can't plan for being triggered, right? And if something hurts you or someone hurts your feelings or something like that, what are some of the best ways to deal with the intense rush of emotions that either come from that quote unquote rejection sensitivity, or just not having a very regulated nervous system, which could create fear, anger, resentment, indifference, all of the things?
The first thing is pause.
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 Even in the pause. Okay.
Pause in the pause. Pause, especially in the pause. So if it's happening live, pause, take a deep breath, ground yourself, and ask yourself, was there malice, malintent from this person, or am I being sensitive? Did I read it the wrong way? Did something really happen, or is this a narrative that I'm telling myself? And once you start developing that skill, then you're so much less phased, because we all know we can't control anybody else, but we can control how we react.
Sure.
And chances are, if there wasn't malice or malintent, there are strategies to just try and figure out how to let it go. Because I would also look at the source. Is this somebody that I value? Is this an opinion, or is this something that is somebody that I respect? The best way to learn more about it is really just to ask.
That's what I was going to ask you, is like, you were saying this stuff as if it's something that you should only have as a conversation in your head. Am I overreacting? Was this malintent, or is somebody displaying malice towards me? I would think that asking the question, was that, are you trying to be cruel, or, or was that intended to be mean, is not outside the realm of a grown-up conversation, right?
It's not. And no shame. The best way to get an answer to a question, if you don't know what somebody's thinking, is to ask.
But the one thing that I keep noticing in the ADHD conversation is perspective, right? It's different. That's like when we say neurodivergent, in a way, it's just this idea that the perspective of that person is different from somebody who's neurotypical. And if that perspective is different, I wonder if that also brings feelings that make it more difficult to behave in a way that's quote unquote neurotypical, right? Even if you know what to do, that the feeling of shame of asking, hey, are you being mean, would be so great that we wouldn't be able to that feeling in order to be communicative in a way that might be more helpful.
When I said before, ADHD is not a condition of knowing, it's a condition of doing. That's the exact, I didn't articulate how to explain that very well, but what you just said, it's not that they don't know what to do. Sometimes they just don't know how to do it.
You were talking a lot about prep, and there's a lot of prep that you can do to take overwhelming decisions, break them down into smaller pieces, so that morning of, you can get to work, you can get your kids to school, you can do whatever you want. But when you are in the midst of an argument or in the midst of a discussion and somebody says something that really strikes a chord, what do you reach for in the moment? You say pause.
I say pause. So this was something that was like my biggest aha moment. I've always had huge feelings. I get really excited like a kid, even though I'm 2 years old, and I get really deflated over something stupid. And so I had no idea that that is an ADHD thing. That's not a TDY thing. People feel their feelings bigger than a neuro strategies. Besides, I really think that's the biggest one. You could also say, I need to think about this. Can we take this up in a little bit? I think asking the question, asking for a pause, asking for a break, asking for clarification, but also realizing, depending on the context, like if it's at work, telling yourself that this may not be personal. So I think that it's a combination of inward and outward things that need to happen, but there is never anything wrong with taking a pause. I need a quick beat here because you never want to say something that you're going to.
That's not just good advice for somebody with ADHD. My feeling is if your first response to something is deeply emotional and overwhelming, that is definitely a sign to take a pause no matter what. I think the big thing for women in particular who are experiencing this while going through perimenopause is, are there exercises they should be doing in order to alleviate ADHD as a symptom, if that's what it is, or at least alleviate ADHD to the extent that you can manage it with the rest of your life?
So mindfulness, meditation, yoga nidra, listening to music, anything that can unplug all of the circuits from your brain. Because when you have ADHD, people liken it to having too many tabs open at one time on a computer. And so when you can unplug and close all the tabs, be present in the moment, that will calm your nervous system from fight or flight into relaxation mode. And it also, that's when you have the ability to learn and grow when you're open. Think of a big grassy open field. For me, hot yoga changed my life.
Really? Because you have to be so present and in the moment. You kind of can't think about anything else because your body's on.
I didn't have to do anything. That was the thing. I went to hot yoga. I could do like 5% of the poses when I went. I sat in child's pose and just sweated and didn't care, was like in my own thing. The thing is that when I am in that time, nothing else exists in the world. And when your brain is unplugged, that's when you can become more neuroplastic. And that's when you can learn new things. Because people always say it's hard to learn things, is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That is wrong.
I agree.
It's all about being open, like removing judgment, lowering your expectation of yourself.
That's a hard thing to hear, though. Lowering an expectation of oneself is a hard thing to hear. And I say that as somebody who, like with an autoimmune disease, it dawned on me that my body can't do the things that it used to do. That if I'm going to walk 20,000 steps a day, I'm going to wind up having to take a nap because that's just pushing my body further than it should go on any given day. How do you lower an expectation of yourself without taking it personally?
When you can practice that radical acceptance on yourself, that's when you set yourself up for success, because then you can actually exceed your expectations. That's what I feel like your 50s is about. Like cutting through the crap that doesn't matter, cleaning house of people who don't fill your buckets, prioritizing what's important to you, letting things go that don't matter, like letting grudges go, not taking things personally, coming to things from a place of positive, assuming positive intent and not people pleasing. Like to me, that's what the days are about.
Absolutely. I would say that's the whole menopausal experience. No question. I feel that way. Where can people find you if they want to reach you, if they want to, book an appointment with you? Where do they go?
They can go Lifestormer. It's LIFESTORMER.com.
And Lifestormer, just to ask this last question, is that taking life by storm?
It is weathering the storms of life.
Wow.
There are ups and downs. And my favorite quote of all time is "This too shall pass." Intentionality helps so much with ADHD and perimenopause, because when you set an intention, then you're deliberate about what you're going to do.
Say that again. When you set an intention then
you're deliberate in the choices that you're making so that you're not wasting time.
Yes. Yes.
And then as far as the grace goes, the only thing consistent about ADHD is inconsistency. Can't be perfect and inconsistent at the same time. So accepting that and then realizing that if you're consistent a lot of time, that that's good enough.
We're all such individual blueprints. But I do really find it very interesting that this idea of intentionality, being deliberate about what you're going to do, and setting that down, being able to prepare for that if possible, or somehow prepare for that as much as possible before something happens, is helpful to everybody. It's helpful for the way you style yourself. It's helpful for how you live life generally. Debbie, I want to thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello Menopause is a production from Let's Talk Menopause, produced in partnership with Studio Kairos. I'm your host, Stacy London. Let's Talk Menopause is a national nonprofit organization invested in changing the conversation around menopause so women get the information they need and the health care they deserve. Please visit letstalkmenopause.org. Hello Menopause is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and everywhere you get your podcasts.